Welcome to Biology My Passion. I am Soumya Harikrishna. We are learning the chapter Biological Classification and we learned Kingdom Monera. Today we will discuss Kingdom Protista. We learned when the two kingdom classification had some anomalies. To avoid that or to solve that, R.H. Whittaker made different kingdoms or 5 kingdom classification was proposed. Now all the prokaryotes are in Monera. The rest of the organisms are all eukaryote. But among eukaryotes, there can be unicellular or multicellular forms. So all the unicellular eukaryotes are put under the category of kingdom Protista. So what we are going to study here are unicellular and they are eukaryote. Since they are eukaryote, what other two features we can say? They have a well-defined nucleus, means a nuclear membrane is present, and also membrane-bound organelles are also present in them. But when we talk about this group, this is rather considered as an artificial group. Why? Because these organisms have been taken from plant kingdom as well as animal kingdom. Chlorella and all taken from the plant kingdom, whereas amoeba, paramecium are from the animal kingdom. So they are like both the characteristics they can show, plants as well as animals. So that is called an artificial group. So one scientist may call them as photosynthetic protists, means some protists can do photosynthesis. So they are called a photosynthetic protistan. But another scientist may like to call them as plant. Okay, so that is actually a kind of connecting link it forms with the other groups, that is fungus, plant kingdom and animal kingdom. Another characteristic, so they are a connecting link. Another characteristic is they may or may not have flagella or cilia. Flagella means it's a long whiplash-like structure, whereas cilia are small oar-like structures, both help in locomotion. Now coming to the reproduction, they may reproduce asexually or sexually by cell fusion or zygote formation. Now when you talk about Protista, we have classified them into 5 different classes. One is chrysophytes. Chrysophytes include diatoms, then dinoflagellates, euglenoids, slime molds and protozoans. Out of these, first 3, chrysophytes, dinoflagellates and euglenoids are photosynthetic protistans, and they carry out more than 80% of photosynthesis happening in this biosphere. So they are actually contributing a lot to the process of photosynthesis. But the other 2 members are not photosynthetic. Let's move on to the first group of protistans called chrysophytes. Chrysophytes include diatoms and desmids. Desmids are otherwise called golden algae. Then they are found in aquatic medium, either in the freshwater or in marine condition. They are usually floating on the surface of water. As we know, they are unicellular and they float on the surface of water, and they are called planktons. And they are photosynthetic and they are the chief producers in the aquatic environment. Then one characteristic feature is that around the plasma membrane they have another shell. That shell is called a frustule. This frustule is made up of silica. So that's called a siliceous cell wall. Okay, it's like a cell wall, and it is made up of something called a silica. It has got 2 halves. It is like a soft dish, the upper lid overlapping the lower lid. And the upper lid is called the epitheca, or upper half is called the epitheca. Lower half is called the hypotheca. Now it has got beautiful ornamentations in it. And this cell wall material is indestructible because it's made up of silica. So what happens once these diatoms die, this cell wall material, that is the siliceous material, gets deposited inside under the ocean. Over billions of years, it will form a structure called a diatomaceous earth. This diatomaceous earth is commercially exploited by us in making polishes and also for filtering syrups, oils, etc. and also in the manufacturing of toothpaste, paints, etc. So here the important point to remember are, first, they are the chief producers. They have a siliceous cell wall making diatomaceous earth, and they are the planktons. Chrysophytes are the largest group of protistans. Now coming to the next group, that is dinoflagellates. Dinoflagellates include more than 1000 species. They are all photosynthetic, as we mentioned earlier. First 3 groups we are studying, chrysophytes, dinoflagellates and euglenoids are photosynthetic. Then these are found mostly in marine environment, and they have a thick coat over their body. It's a rigid coat called a theca, or it is called a lorica. It has got two grooves. They are like two plates, and it has got a longitudinal groove and a horizontal groove. They can vary in their color depending upon the chief pigment present in them. They can be yellow, brown, red, blue, green, etc. They have two flagella, as the name indicates, dinoflagellae. Di means two. Two flagella they possess. Out of these, one is a longitudinal one, the other one is horizontal along the furrow. So, since two flagella of two different types, we call them as heterocot. Then next, another important feature to remember here is the formation of red tide. There is a red variety of this dinoflagellae called a goniolax. The rapid multiplication of goniolax can turn the sea into red color. This is called a red tide. But this is not that good because the toxins produced during this red tide formation can kill the other aquatic organisms including fishes and many invertebrates. So the most important thing to remember here are first the goniolax. That means the red tide is caused by a dinoflagellate called a goniolax. Second one, they have two different types of flagella present in their body. The next group of protistans is euglenoids. So euglenoids are mostly freshwater. So when you study this, I told you first you by heart the names in the order, that is chrysophytes, dinoflagellates, euglenoids, slime molds and protistan. Then study the characteristics in the order. So the first one we saw they can be aquatic like freshwater or marine. When we came to dinoflagellates, we learned they are mostly marine. But when we come to euglenoids, they are mostly freshwater. And these freshwater forms actually found in the stagnant water like pond and lake where it's not flowing. Then next is another important feature. The previous two had very thick wall over them. One was siliceous, the other one was thick plate-like structure. But here they do not have a cell wall. But instead they have a covering of protein-rich layer that is called a pellicle. So it is a flexible nature. Then next important is like dinoflagellates, even euglenoids have two flagella, one long flagella and one short flagella. And next is very interesting feature, they are mixotrophic. Means the first two groups we saw they were exclusively photosynthetic. But now we are talking about the euglenoids which are having both the nature, that is they have the photosynthetic pigment present in them. But only with the pigment they cannot do photosynthesis. What is the next availability or the need? That is the availability of light. So if light is present or available, they will do photosynthesis and they act as autotrophic organisms. But in the absence of light, they will switch to heterotrophic mode of nutrition, feeding on other organisms. So since they show both autotrophic as well as heterotrophic condition, they are called a mixotrophic in nature. Then example is euglena. So here the most important points to remember are, one is the protein layer called a pellicle and second one is mixotrophic nutrition. Next group of protists is slime molds. Slime molds are the decomposers. So if they are decomposers, what is their mode of nutrition? Of course, saprophytic, which is a heterotrophic mode of nutrition. They feed on dead and decomposed matter. That means they spread over the decaying twigs and leaves and they form an aggregate over several feet. So this aggregation or collection of this slime molds is called a plasmodium. But for biologists, another plasmodium is familiar. What is that? The protozoan which can cause malaria. That is also a protestant protozoan which can cause malaria. But here this plasmodium is the aggregation of the body of the slime molds. Now they have two conditions, that is during unfavorable conditions they produce fruiting bodies and they form some thick walled spores. These spores will be transferred using air current and they spread to different area. But if the conditions are favorable, they form a thick layer called a plasmodium several feet over the decaying organic material and feed on them. Since they can switch to these modes during favorable and unfavorable conditions, they live for several years. So they survive for many years and they can withstand highly unfavorable conditions because they can reproduce or through spores during that time. The last group of protistants include protozoans. Protozoans again can be classified into four. First is the amoeboid protozoans. These protistants are more animal-like. They are heterotrophic. and they can be either parasitic or predators on other organisms. Now first group is called the amoeboid protozoans. So amoeboid protozoans, when we tell the name itself, we know they are the group including animals like a amoeba. So what are their features? They are aquatic, mostly freshwater, or they can be seen in the marine water as well, or they can be found in moist soil. And they move and capture the prey with the help of pseudopodia or false foot. They stretch the body and then engulf them using a pseudopodia. Some marine sperm have silica shell over their body. Entamoeba histolytica is a parasitic form. It can cause amoebic dysentery. Next is a flagellated protozoan. These protozoans, as the name indicates, they have flagellum for movement. They can be either free living or parasitic. So the parasitic forms can cause diseases like a sleeping sickness. Sleeping sickness is otherwise called a human African trypanosomiasis. It is caused by a protozoan called a Trypanosoma gambians. It is carried to the infected person by a fly called a tsetse fly. This after that infection, up to 6 to 2 years, they may remain asymptomatic, but these people will feel so lethargic and fatigued. That's why it is called a sleeping sickness, because in the severe cases, these organisms entering our body can cross the blood barrier and go to the central nervous system and finally infect the brain, resulting in convulsions, sleep disruptions, and also confusions, lethargy, all those. But it takes time to treat the disease. Next is a ciliated protozoan. They have cilia all around the body for movement. They have a lot of cilia all around the body, thousands of them, which will help them to move in the water. They are mostly aquatic, and this is why they are active locomotion they show. And also they have an opening at the body that is called a gillet. So with the help of cilia, they can bring the food particle near the gillet and take it inside their cell. Then the last example is a paramecium. Paramecium is otherwise called a slipper animalcule because of its shape resembling that of a slipper, sole of a slipper. Next is a sporozoans. So there are many organisms which have an infectious stage spore-like structure in their lifetime. So that's why they are called as sporozoans. The typical example is Plasmodium. Just we mentioned Plasmodium causes a disease called malaria. It has got a different spore stages, and malaria causing Plasmodium has two hosts. Primary host is a mosquito in which sexual reproduction happens, and the asexual spores will be transferred to the human body. In the human body, inside the liver and RBC, these asexual spores multiply, causing the disease symptoms malaria. It affects a large number of human population. So these are the main points you have to study under the category of kingdom Protista. If you understand all these concepts, please give me a like and also share with your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to my channel, Biology My Passion. Thank you for watching.